Just when you thought you knew everything there was to know about the often bizarre life of Michael Jackson, more information is revealed. The FBI has released more than 300 pages of formerly classified documents relating to the late King of Pop, including details regarding his child cases. It's also come out a man allegedly obsessed with Jacko's sister Janet threatened to kill the star and thousands of his fans if he wasn't given half of the singer's fortune. In one letter dated in July 1992, the man states he will personally attempt to kill if he isn't paid his money.
Michael Jackson's name suddenly popped up in the Jeffrey Epstein files, and the internet instantly exploded. Headlines everywhere, timelines flooded, comment sections going wild. Millions of people arguing like crazy, everyone convinced they know the truth. Some people swear he was guilty, others claim he was actually trying to help kids and protect them from Epstein's circle. The arguments keep getting louder, nastier, and more chaotic by the minute. But here's the strange part that almost nobody is talking about. Why is the entire world obsessing over someone who passed away back in 2009, while several people mentioned in those same documents are still alive today and walking around freely? That question changes the whole angle of this story. Stick around because what comes next flips the way people look at this situation completely.
But why would the FBI have a 300-page file on Jackson? Turns out many celebrities routinely end up finding themselves under FBI scrutiny. There are FBI files on Marilyn Monroe, Frank Sinatra, Martin Luther King, even former Supreme Court Justice William Rehnquist. Many involve threats. The new FBI files detail how Michael Jackson received death threats from a man obsessed with his famous sister Janet.
You clicked on this video for a reason. You want the real story, the straight facts about Michael Jackson and Jeffrey Epstein. And that is exactly what we're breaking down today. No guessing games, no wild rumors, just what the records actually say. We're going to look directly at what the Epstein files mention about Michael Jackson, word for word, so you can see what's really written in those documents. We'll also go over what the FBI discovered after looking into Michael Jackson for nearly 10 years. That's a full decade of investigation, reports, and official records. On top of that, we're going to crack open the massive conspiracy stories that spread to millions of people online and examine how those claims blew up so fast. And here's the big question hardly anyone in the media seems willing to push. Was Michael Jackson's name used as a distraction while attention moved away from other powerful figures mentioned in those same files? By the end of this video, you'll see the facts, the sources, and the evidence people keep debating, so you can decide what you think about it.
You're telling us nothing happened, is that right?
Yes.
All right. What you're really telling us is nothing happened while you were awake. Isn't that true?
I'm telling you that nothing ever happened.
Mr. Robson, when you were asleep, you wouldn't have known what had happened, particularly at age 7, would you have?
I would think something like that would wake me up.
Before we jump into the real facts, let's clear something up right away. I'm not going to spend a long time explaining who Jeffrey Epstein was or everything he did. Most people watching already know the basics of that story. What matters here is something different, because when Michael Jackson's name started popping up in conversations about Epstein, two completely different stories exploded across the internet at the same time. The first story claimed Michael Jackson was somehow connected to Epstein's crimes. That headline spread like wildfire. Articles, social media posts, and comment sections filled up with people accusing him without even reading the actual documents. But then a second story popped up that went the total opposite direction. This one said Michael Jackson was secretly some kind of hero who went to Epstein's island to rescue children. That theory also blew up online and spread to millions of people just as fast. Both of these stories traveled across the internet at lightning speed, reaching tens of millions of viewers. But here's the thing, before anyone can understand why both of those stories miss the real picture, you have to look at the actual timeline of events involving Michael Jackson. Not rumors, not internet theories, but the documented record investigators spent years putting together. So let's go back to 1993. That was the year the first major allegations against Michael Jackson hit the news. And this was huge. We're talking about the biggest pop star on the planet at the time. His name was everywhere. His music dominated the world. And suddenly, he was facing accusations that shocked the public. Because of the scale of the situation, this wasn't handled like a small investigation. The FBI got involved right away. Not just local police departments, not just a quick review. The Federal Bureau of Investigation stepped in and began collecting information connected to the case. And they didn't treat it lightly. According to official records, the FBI continued reviewing information related to Michael Jackson for roughly 10 years, from 1993 all the way through the mid-2000s. Investigators gathered documents, reports, witness statements, and tips connected to the allegations. In total, the file eventually grew to more than 600 pages of material. Think about that for a second. Hundreds of pages of reports, notes, and investigative records compiled over a decade. That's a massive amount of work, involving numerous investigators and federal resources. 10 years is a long time. Most people don't even stay in the same career that long. Yet, for a full decade, federal authorities continued reviewing information tied to the case. Eventually, the investigation reached its conclusion. On December 9, 2004, the FBI officially closed its review related to Michael Jackson. The documents that were later released show the final determination investigators recorded. The statement was direct and simple. Investigators reported finding no evidence of criminal conduct connected to Jackson within the scope of their review. Brian Oxman, a lawyer who represented the Jackson family, later described the result very clearly. After all those years of investigation, after hundreds of pages of files and countless hours spent examining the claims, he said there was not a single piece of evidence in those documents showing that Michael Jackson committed a crime. Not one. 10 full years of investigation, hundreds of pages of records, and in the end, the official files stated there was no evidence found connecting him to criminal activity.
Okay. Okay. Compose yourself. The prosecution's theory is that this witness that they didn't call, but who they say was molested, didn't remember because he was asleep when it happened. Is that right?
The prosecution's theory is if they're called by the Jackson camp, they must be lying. Gee, doesn't that sound familiar? First of all, I remember Wade Robson. I talked to Wade Robson. Okay. I remember this kid very well, and some of the other witnesses we'll see. And he was as strong as he could be 12 years ago as he is now with respect to what happened.
And this is the witness who the maid said she saw with Michael Jackson in the shower. Is that correct?
Yes.
So he flatly contradicts that. He appears to be very credible. He says, no, that didn't happen. And this maid, of course, received money from Michael Jackson and therefore has a motive.
And let's remember that testimony. She doesn't say she specifically sees him. Remember, it was foggy in the shower.
Yes.
She may have saw two people, wasn't quite sure, testified she couldn't tell, and now this comes out.
Now, here's where the story gets even more detailed and honestly even more surprising when you look at the actual records. In 2003, law enforcement carried out a major search at Neverland Ranch. This wasn't just investigators stopping by to ask a few questions. This was a full-scale search operation with officers collecting evidence across the property. During that search, authorities seized computers and digital storage devices connected to Michael Jackson. In total, investigators collected 16 different hard drives, along with several computers from the property. Every one of those devices was taken as potential evidence and sent away for detailed analysis. And they weren't just handed to a random lab. Those drives were sent to the FBI's Computer Analysis Response Team, often called CART. This unit is known for handling some of the toughest digital investigations in the country. These are the specialists who analyze devices in major federal cases, the experts trained to recover files people think are gone forever. Their job is to dig through everything, every file, every folder, every deleted item, every search history record. Even data that someone believes was erased can sometimes still be recovered by forensic teams like this. That's exactly why the CART unit exists. They are trained to uncover hidden or deleted information that ordinary software would never find. So the analysts began going through the drives connected to Michael Jackson's computers. They checked documents, images, downloads, browser history, and system activity logs. They looked at saved files, temporary files, and even fragments of deleted data that might still remain on the drives. Investigators were looking for anything suspicious at all that could connect to illegal activity. And remember, this wasn't done quickly. Forensic reviews like this can take months because every single piece of digital data has to be examined carefully. Investigators know that even a small trace can matter, so the process is extremely detailed. The official findings from that examination were later summarized in an FBI document dated April 5, 2004. According to that report, investigators recorded no outstanding leads or evidence items. The forensic review of the seized computers did not show records of searches for illegal material, nor did it uncover files that investigators identified as illegal content. After examining the drives and the system data, the team did not report finding evidence connected to criminal activity on those devices. Think about how significant that review was. 16 hard drives, multiple computers, months of forensic analysis, and one of the most advanced digital investigation teams in the world, examining everything piece by piece. When investigators analyze computers, they usually expect to find traces of activity because digital systems tend to record actions automatically. Search queries, downloads, browsing activity, and stored files can all leave digital footprints behind. That's exactly why forensic analysts are able to reconstruct timelines from devices in many investigations. Even when files are deleted, pieces of data sometimes remain in the system. Yet after going through the devices connected to Michael Jackson's computers, the FBI's digital analysis team reported that they did not identify evidence of illegal material during their review. 16 hard drives examined, some of the best digital forensic investigators in the country involved, and according to the records released from that investigation, the analysis did not uncover evidence tied to illegal content on those computers.
You're telling us nothing happened, is that right?
Yes.
All right. What you're really telling us is nothing happened while you were awake. Isn't that true?
I'm telling you that nothing ever happened.
Now let's move forward to one of the most important moments in this entire timeline, the trial that took place in Santa Barbara County Superior Court. By this point, the case had already dominated headlines around the world. Cameras were everywhere, reporters packed the courtroom area, and millions of people were watching every update. This was not a quiet legal process happening behind closed doors. It was one of the most watched celebrity trials in modern history. For months, the courtroom heard testimony from witnesses, investigators, and experts. The prosecution presented its case, laying out every argument they believed supported the accusations. The defense responded with their own witnesses, evidence, and cross-examinations. Everything was put on the table. Every claim, every witness statement, every piece of evidence the prosecution believed supported their case. The trial moved through weeks of testimony as lawyers questioned witnesses and challenged each other's arguments. Jurors listened carefully to everything presented in the courtroom. Their responsibility was simple but extremely serious: examine the evidence and determine whether the charges had been proven beyond reasonable doubt. Eventually, the trial reached the moment everyone had been waiting for. The jury went into deliberation. They didn't rush it either. Jurors spent 32 hours discussing the case, spread across 7 days of deliberation. That is a long time for a jury to review evidence, testimony, and legal instructions. It shows they took their role seriously and carefully examined what had been presented during the trial. Then the verdict day arrived. One by one, the counts were read out in court. Count 1, not guilty. A pause filled the courtroom as the decision was recorded. Then the next count. Count 2, not guilty. And then again, count 3, not guilty. The pattern continued as the court clerk read through the charges. Each time the verdict came back the same: not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. By the time the final count was announced, the result was clear. The jury had reached the same conclusion across all 14 charges brought in the case. Michael Jackson was acquitted on every single count. After the trial ended, several jurors later explained how they reached their decision. According to their comments in interviews after the verdict, they did not believe the prosecution had proven the accusations beyond reasonable doubt. Jurors said they carefully reviewed the testimony and evidence presented during the trial. Some also said that certain witness statements raised questions during deliberations, which the jury discussed while examining the case. In the end, the jury concluded that the evidence presented during the trial was not strong enough to support a conviction under the legal standard required in criminal court, and that point matters. This outcome was not the result of a technical loophole or a quick settlement behind closed doors. It was not a plea agreement or a dropped case. This was a full criminal trial held in open court with witnesses, cross-examinations, and weeks of testimony presented before a jury. 12 jurors heard the evidence, reviewed the charges, and debated the case for days. When their final decision was read, the verdict came back across the board. 14 charges considered, 14 verdicts delivered, and each one came back the same. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty.
So I'm going to put it my way so I had it before. Sorry, again. Okay.
Now let's look at what the Epstein files actually say about Michael Jackson. Not what dramatic headlines suggested, not what social media assumed, just the words written in the documents themselves. On December 20th, 2025, the U.S. Department of Justice released additional records connected to the Epstein investigation. Among the materials circulating online was a photograph that included Michael Jackson standing with Bill Clinton and Diana Ross at what appears to be a celebrity event. The exact date of the photo isn't clearly identified in the documents, and that's the key point. That image is essentially the entire connection that people started talking about. One photo at what looks like a public gathering with other famous figures. That's it. Even summaries discussing the documents make this clear. One commonly cited description of the Epstein files states it is unclear why the photograph was in the files, and there is no suggestion that Jackson was aware of or involved in any of Epstein's crimes. In other words, the presence of a photograph in the records does not by itself show involvement in any wrongdoing. Michael Jackson's name also appeared on a Department of Justice list of politically exposed persons. When people hear that phrase, it sounds extremely serious, but the reality of that list is very different. The list reportedly contains hundreds of well-known individuals, including public figures, celebrities, and global leaders. Some names often mentioned in discussions of the list include people who passed away long before Epstein's criminal activities became widely known. The purpose of such lists is typically to track connections or references to prominent individuals whose names might appear in documents. Being included does not automatically mean a person was involved in criminal activity. It simply means the name appeared somewhere within collected records. Now here's another detail that often gets mentioned in discussions about the files. One of Epstein's victims, Johanna Sjoberg, gave sworn testimony during legal proceedings connected to the case. During questioning under oath, she was asked directly whether she had ever had sexual contact with Michael Jackson. Her answer was no. She was also asked whether she had ever given Michael Jackson a massage. Again, her answer was no. Statements made under oath in legal proceedings carry serious legal consequences if someone knowingly lies. In that testimony, she did not claim that Jackson had contact with her in that way. Beyond that, public discussions about the files frequently point out that there are no known flight logs listing Michael Jackson traveling to Epstein's island, no direct allegations from victims placing him there, and no documents showing visits to Little St. James. So the confirmed references people point to are limited: a photograph at a social event, a name appearing on a large list of public figures, and sworn testimony from a victim stating she did not have sexual contact with him. Now let's talk about the other viral story that exploded online. While some people accused Michael Jackson of being connected to Epstein's crimes, another theory spread in the opposite direction. According to that conspiracy, Michael Jackson was secretly a hero who rescued children from Epstein's island. That idea spread to millions of viewers across social media. Videos claimed things like MJ saved kids or that Neverland Ranch was built to protect children from Epstein's island. But when you check the timeline, the claim runs into serious problems. Neverland Ranch was purchased by Michael Jackson in 1988. Epstein purchased Little St. James in 1998. That's a 10-year gap. Neverland existed a full decade before Epstein owned the island that later became infamous. On top of that, the first major allegations against Jackson surfaced in 1993, which is 5 years after Epstein purchased Little St. James. When you line up those dates, the theory doesn't match the timeline. And then there's another viral piece of content many people have seen online, a supposed audio clip claiming Macaulay Culkin said Michael Jackson stopped him from getting on a plane connected to Epstein's island. But investigators and fact-checkers have pointed out that versions of this clip circulating online appear to be AI-generated or fabricated, not authentic recordings.
I'll never forget that. Michael Jackson saved me from getting on a plane to that tiny island.
Millions of people shared the clip almost instantly. It spread across TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and every corner of social media. Comment sections filled up with people calling it the smoking gun. For many viewers, that short audio clip sounded like the final piece of proof in the entire story. But there was one massive problem. The clip was completely fake. Investigators and fact-checkers later concluded the audio was AI-generated. On February 18, 2026, the fact-checking site Snopes reviewed the viral recording. Their official rating was clear: false. The audio was analyzed using detection software designed to identify synthetic voices and deepfake recordings. One of the tools used in the analysis was Deepfakeometer, a system built specifically to evaluate whether audio clips are likely generated by artificial intelligence. After examining the recording, the results showed a very high likelihood of AI generation. And there's another detail that raises serious doubts. Macaulay Culkin has never publicly said anything connecting Michael Jackson to Jeffrey Epstein in verified interviews. Not on major podcasts, not in magazine interviews, not in documented press appearances. If you listen closely to the viral audio, many people notice strange patterns. The pacing feels off. The cadence sounds unnatural. The tone has a slightly robotic edge. There's also no verified video source for the recording, no interview clip, no broadcast footage, nothing showing where the statement supposedly came from. Reports tracing the spread of the audio suggest the clip first appeared online in February 2026, right after the Epstein files and the photograph mentioning Michael Jackson began trending again. In other words, the audio surfaced at the exact moment when conspiracy theories were already gaining momentum online. That timing matters.
As photos that are coming out, the White House, as Abigail Jackson from the White House saying, per the Epstein Files Transparency Act, DOJ was specifically instructed only to redact the faces of victims and or minors. Here is a picture of Bill Clinton with his arm around Michael Jackson and redacted individuals. And so that is some of the early thinking right now of these files that are being released, photos and some redactions along the way as well. Some more than 1,200 victims with powerful figures, and the files include new photos of former President Bill Clinton and Epstein on the island. So now for more on this, to talk about the way that these files...
Because it suggests someone may have created the clip to ride the wave of attention already building on social media. Within hours, the recording had reached millions of views. People reposted it, reacted to it, and shared it as if it were verified evidence. That's how fast misinformation can move online today. With modern AI tools, someone can generate a realistic voice recording in minutes, add a dramatic story behind it, and suddenly millions of people believe it before anyone checks whether it's real. So the Culkin audio doesn't prove anything about Michael Jackson. What it actually shows is how easily fake evidence can spread when people want a story to be true. Now, here's another part of the story that rarely gets discussed but is important to understand. Actor Corey Feldman, known for films like The Goonies, Stand By Me, The Lost Boys, and Gremlins, has spoken publicly for years about abuse he experienced as a child actor in Hollywood. During the 1980s, Feldman and his close friend Corey Haim were among the most famous young actors in the industry. Behind the scenes, Feldman later said he and others were exploited by powerful individuals connected to the entertainment world. Over time, Feldman repeatedly called attention to what he described as abuse networks affecting young performers. When accusations against Michael Jackson began appearing in the early 1990s, Feldman publicly defended him. Feldman said that during the time he knew Jackson, he did not experience the kind of abuse he had described elsewhere in the industry. In interviews over the years, Feldman has said that spending time around Jackson felt different from the environment he experienced in other parts of Hollywood. At one point, he described Michael Jackson as a place where he felt safe during a period of his life when he said he was dealing with serious exploitation in other areas of the entertainment business. For Feldman, that distinction mattered. While he has spoken openly about wrongdoing he says existed in parts of Hollywood, he has also said that his personal experiences with Michael Jackson did not match those allegations.
Think about how unusual that statement is for a moment. Corey Feldman spent years speaking publicly about abuse inside the entertainment industry. He has talked about powerful people, manipulation, and the dark side of fame that most audiences never see. Yet when Michael Jackson's name comes up, Feldman has consistently told a very different story. According to Feldman, when he was around Jackson, the atmosphere did not feel threatening or manipulative. In several interviews over the years, he explained that those experiences stood in sharp contrast to what he described happening elsewhere in Hollywood during the same time period. That's a powerful detail, because Feldman wasn't someone trying to protect the industry. Quite the opposite. He has spent years calling out what he believes were serious problems affecting young performers. Speaking out about those issues has been controversial and difficult, and he has faced criticism and pushback for it. So when someone with that background says one particular person was different, people tend to notice. Feldman has said that during his time as a child actor, he encountered situations involving exploitation by individuals connected to the film industry. Those experiences shaped how he later viewed the environment surrounding young stars in Hollywood. But when he talked about Michael Jackson, his message was clear. His own experiences around Jackson did not match the allegations that later dominated headlines. And that contrast is one reason the debate around Michael Jackson has stayed so intense for decades. On one side, there are accusations and investigations that brought enormous attention to the case. On the other side, there are individuals who say their personal experiences with Jackson were positive or supportive. When stories like that collide, the public conversation becomes complicated very quickly. Add in the internet, viral rumors, and AI-generated content, and things can spiral even faster. Today, information spreads at lightning speed. A short clip, a screenshot, or a dramatic claim can reach millions of people before anyone has time to verify whether it's accurate. That's exactly what happened with the fake audio clip that spread online. Within hours, people were treating it like confirmed evidence, even though the source was never verified. And that pattern repeats over and over again in major stories. A headline appears. Social media reacts instantly. The most dramatic version of the story travels the fastest. Meanwhile, the actual documents, timelines, and verified facts often move much slower because they require time to read and understand. That's why looking at the full timeline matters. Investigations that lasted years, court trials that involved weeks of testimony, official records released through legal processes. Those pieces take effort to examine, but they're the foundation of how people understand complicated cases. The internet, on the other hand, often runs on speed and emotion. A shocking claim can travel around the world in minutes, especially when it involves famous names and controversial topics. That's exactly why stories connected to Michael Jackson, Jeffrey Epstein, and other powerful figures keep resurfacing online. Fame, mystery, scandal, and conspiracy are a combination that grabs attention instantly. But when you step back and examine the timeline, the documents, and the verified testimony, the picture becomes far more complicated than the viral posts make it seem. And this is where the bigger question starts to appear. Why did Michael Jackson's name explode across headlines again the moment the Epstein files were mentioned? Think about the pattern for a second. A massive document release happens, hundreds of pages connected to powerful people, politicians, business figures, and celebrities. But instead of focusing on the individuals who were alive and active during Epstein's crimes, the internet suddenly locked onto a man who passed away in 2009. That shift in attention happened incredibly fast. Within hours of the documents trending online, posts about Michael Jackson were everywhere. Videos popped up claiming hidden connections. Threads appeared accusing him of involvement. Others pushed the opposite idea, saying he was secretly fighting against Epstein. Two extreme stories spreading at the same time, both going viral, and both pulling attention in the same direction, toward Michael Jackson. This is something media analysts often talk about when big scandals break. The public conversation can sometimes get pulled toward the most recognizable name instead of the most relevant information. And few names in entertainment history are bigger than Michael Jackson. For decades, he has been one of the most recognizable figures on the planet. Even years after his death, anything connected to his name still generates massive attention online. That makes him an easy target for viral headlines, because the moment his name appears in a story, millions of people instantly click. Algorithms notice that attention, platforms push the content further, and suddenly the entire internet is talking about it. Meanwhile, many other names listed in Epstein-related documents receive far less attention. That contrast raises an uncomfortable question. Why does the spotlight keep returning to the same famous figure while other parts of the story stay in the background? Some analysts believe it comes down to the way information spreads online. Content that sparks outrage, shock, or emotional reactions travels the fastest. A legendary pop star connected to a global scandal is exactly the kind of headline that explodes across social media. But the deeper details of investigations, court records, and verified testimony rarely spread the same way. They're slower, more complex, less dramatic in a single sentence. So the conversation often drifts toward the loudest claim instead of the most complete picture. That's why the Michael Jackson debate keeps restarting every few years. A new documentary releases, a set of files becomes public, a viral video appears, and suddenly the entire discussion starts again from the beginning. But when you step back and look at the timeline we've just walked through, a different perspective starts to emerge. A decade-long FBI investigation, a criminal trial where a jury delivered 14 not guilty verdicts, digital forensic analysis that examined multiple computer drives, sworn testimony from an Epstein victim stating she had no sexual contact with him, and viral claims that later turned out to be fabricated or AI-generated. Those are the pieces that actually exist in documented records. Not headlines, not internet rumors, not clips designed to go viral. Just the timeline of events and the evidence that has been publicly discussed over the years.
And when you line up all of those pieces together, something interesting starts to appear. The story people think they know about Michael Jackson is often built from headlines, viral clips, and emotional reactions. But the documented timeline tells a much more complicated story than the internet usually presents. Over the years, Jackson became one of the most analyzed celebrities in modern history. His life was examined by investigators, lawyers, journalists, and millions of people around the world. Every rumor, every allegation, every court document was picked apart in public view. Very few public figures have ever been scrutinized at that level. And yet, despite decades of attention and investigation, the conversation around him still swings wildly between extremes. One side paints him as completely guilty, without question. The other side portrays him as a flawless hero. Reality is rarely that simple. What we can actually point to are the documented events that took place. Investigations happened, a criminal trial happened, evidence was examined, witnesses testified under oath. Those things are part of the historical record. But in the age of social media, records often move slower than rumors. A shocking claim can spread across the internet in minutes. A dramatic video can gain millions of views before anyone asks where it came from. And once a story catches momentum, correcting it becomes incredibly difficult. That's exactly what happened with the fake audio clip that circulated online. By the time fact-checkers identified it as likely AI-generated, millions of people had already seen it and formed an opinion. The same pattern appears again and again.
A headline appears, a rumor spreads, the internet reacts instantly, and suddenly a complex story gets reduced to a single viral claim. Michael Jackson's name has been caught in that cycle for decades. His fame was so massive that even years after his death, stories connected to him still explode across the internet. Few artists ever reached the level of global recognition he had. His music, performances, and cultural influence shaped pop culture across generations. Because of that, his name still carries enormous attention value. And attention drives modern media. The bigger the name, the bigger the clicks. That reality doesn't mean every claim is true or false on its own, but it does explain why certain figures become the center of internet storms over and over again. When the Epstein files started trending, the internet reacted the way it often does. People searched for the most famous name they could find inside the conversation. And once Michael Jackson's name appeared, the discussion exploded. But when you slow down and actually examine the documents, the court records, the sworn testimony, and the timelines, the situation looks far less dramatic than the viral post suggested. That doesn't mean every debate around his legacy disappears, but it does mean the story people see on their timelines is often very different from what the actual records show. And in a world where AI can create voices, videos, and entire narratives in minutes, learning to separate viral claims from verified facts has never been more important. So, after all of this, the real issue might not be Michael Jackson at all. The bigger issue might be how stories spread in the modern internet era. Because what we just walked through is a perfect example of how quickly a narrative can form, grow, and explode before most people ever check the original sources. Think about the sequence. A set of documents connected to Jeffrey Epstein becomes public. Within hours, people online start scanning through names, photos, and lists, trying to find something shocking. Then one image surfaces showing Michael Jackson standing at what looks like a celebrity event alongside other famous figures. Suddenly, the internet lights up. Posts start appearing everywhere. Some people say the photo proves guilt. Others push the opposite claim and say he was secretly fighting against Epstein. Two completely different stories, both spreading at the same time, both grabbing millions of views. But neither side is actually based on what the documents clearly show. This is something researchers who study misinformation see constantly. When a story involves powerful names, celebrity culture, and a global scandal, the internet fills in the gaps almost instantly. And once that happens, the narrative becomes bigger than the evidence. People start building theories. Clips get edited and reposted. Old photos get pulled out of context. Before long, the online conversation becomes a giant puzzle made from half-truths, speculation, and emotional reactions. Michael Jackson's name is especially vulnerable to this cycle because his legacy has always been surrounded by intense debate. Even years after his passing, people still argue about him more than almost any other entertainer. That means every time his name appears in a major story, the internet reacts immediately. Supporters rush to defend him, critics rush to accuse him, and the algorithm pushes the loudest voices to the top. But the real facts rarely move that fast. Court records take time to read. Investigations take years to conduct. Legal testimony is complicated and detailed. Those things don't fit easily into a 20-second viral clip or a dramatic headline.
So, the internet often replaces complexity with a simple storyline: hero or villain, innocent or guilty, secret savior or secret criminal. But the real world doesn't work like that. Major investigations are messy. Legal cases involve conflicting testimony, incomplete evidence, and long timelines. Even experts and investigators sometimes disagree about what certain details mean. That's why courtrooms rely on structured processes, like trials, sworn testimony, and juries. Those systems exist because complicated accusations cannot be decided by rumors or trending posts. And yet today, millions of people often form opinions about serious topics based on clips that appear in their feed for just a few seconds. That's the environment where the Michael Jackson story keeps resurfacing. Every few years, a new wave of content appears: a documentary, a viral post, a leaked document, or now even AI-generated audio. Each wave restarts the same argument all over again. But when you step back and examine the timeline, the investigations, and the verified records, you begin to see something important. The loudest version of the story online is not always the most accurate one.
And that brings us to the final point that almost nobody stops to think about. In the middle of all the viral posts, heated arguments, and shocking headlines, one simple reality keeps getting lost. Michael Jackson has been gone for more than 15 years. He passed away in 2009, long before many of the current internet platforms even existed in the form we know today. Yet somehow, his name still becomes the center of massive online storms. Every few years, the cycle repeats itself. A new claim appears, old accusations get reposted, a documentary or leaked document trends online. Then millions of people start arguing all over again as if the story just happened yesterday. But the truth is, most of the key events in this story were already investigated decades ago. Law enforcement agencies spent years reviewing allegations connected to him. A criminal trial took place where jurors examined testimony and evidence in court. Digital forensic teams analyzed computer equipment taken during searches. Witnesses gave sworn statements under oath. Those are the kinds of processes designed to determine facts in serious situations. They involve investigators, legal procedures, cross-examinations, and detailed reviews of evidence. They move slowly, sometimes taking years, because accuracy matters more than speed. The internet works the exact opposite way.
Online platforms reward speed, emotion, and attention. The more shocking the claim, the faster it spreads. A dramatic headline can reach millions of people before anyone pauses to verify whether it's accurate. And when a story involves huge celebrity names, the reaction becomes even stronger. Michael Jackson wasn't just famous, he was one of the most recognizable entertainers in global history. His music videos, performances, and records shaped pop culture for generations. Because of that, anything connected to his name still attracts enormous attention. That attention creates a powerful cycle. Content creators know that mentioning Michael Jackson instantly draws views. Social media algorithms detect the surge of engagement and push the content further. The debate grows louder and more emotional with every repost. Before long, the conversation becomes less about evidence and more about which side people already believe. Some people enter the discussion convinced he must have been guilty. Others are equally convinced he was completely misunderstood. Both sides often point to different pieces of information to support their position. Meanwhile, the documented timeline remains the same. Investigations took place, court decisions were made, evidence was examined in legal settings. Those records don't change just because a viral post appears online. But what does change constantly is the internet's version of the story. New rumors appear, old footage gets reinterpreted, and now artificial intelligence can even generate voices or videos that look real at first glance. That's why stories like this keep coming back again and again. Not necessarily because new facts appear, but because the internet keeps rediscovering the same controversy through new technology, new platforms, and new waves of attention. And when you look at the entire timeline from start to finish, one thing becomes clear. The loudest story online isn't always the one supported by the most carefully examined evidence. So here's the question that almost nobody seems to be asking. Why is everyone so focused on Michael Jackson while the real predators connected to Epstein tastes remain mostly out of the spotlight? Think about the situation for a moment. Michael Jackson passed away in 2009. He is not here to respond to accusations, explain his side, or defend his reputation. He cannot sit down for interviews. He cannot hire lawyers to challenge headlines. He cannot file lawsuits against people spreading claims about him. He has no voice in today's conversation. And while millions of people argue online about whether he was a villain or some kind of misunderstood hero, something else is happening at the same time. Attention keeps moving away from the people who are still alive. The individuals who were connected to Jeffrey Epstein's world, the people whose names appear in documents and testimony, the ones who could still be questioned, investigated, or held accountable. Those people are real, living individuals. And that's why some critics of the media coverage ask a difficult question. Has the conversation been pulled toward a famous name that cannot respond, while the broader investigation into Epstein's network receives less attention? Stories from survivors show how complicated and painful that situation has been. For example, Maria Farmer, one of Epstein's early accusers, said she tried to report Epstein to authorities back in 1996. According to public interviews and legal records, she attempted to alert the FBI about what she said was happening, but the case did not move forward immediately. Years passed before Epstein faced significant legal consequences. During that time, survivors have said they felt ignored while abuse continued. Those accounts are part of the documented history of the case and show how long some victims waited before their stories were taken seriously. That reality matters, because while the internet debates theories, rumors, and even AI-generated clips about celebrities, the people directly affected by Epstein's crimes have spent decades seeking accountability. And there is another important point that often gets overlooked. When people spread fake stories, even if they believe they are defending someone, it can actually make the situation worse. False claims give critics an easy reason to dismiss legitimate arguments or documented facts. That's exactly what happens when viral conspiracies appear. If someone creates a dramatic story that isn't supported by evidence, it can poison the conversation. People start assuming that every defense must also be based on misinformation. In other words, false stories don't protect the truth, they bury it. The reality is that the documented timeline involving Michael Jackson already contains serious investigations, court decisions, and testimony that people continue to debate today. Those records exist without needing exaggerated theories or fabricated clips. Facts stand on their own. When discussions stay grounded in verified information, it becomes much easier to separate rumor from reality. And that brings the conversation back to the bigger question. Why does the internet keep returning to the same celebrity name, while the broader story surrounding Epstein's network remains so complex and unresolved? That's something people continue to debate.
Now I want to hear what you think. Do you believe Michael Jackson's name became a distraction in the public conversation surrounding the Epstein files? Or do you think the attention simply followed the biggest headline? Share your thoughts and join the discussion.